Okay, here we are at the initial level of Fractured Fate. As well as starting in this area, the player will also come back to this area whenever they happen to come to an end sequence, as in dying. They'll be coming down this little road that comes stretching out right next to this little hill. And if they choose not to step out onto their plane and continue on going down the road, at the end there's a random portal which will send them to one of the next 3 areas, which we'll get to in a bit. These little walls up here are the tree and bush line. As you can see, there's a little bit of bump on the bottom. This is where the brambles would be placed, with the trees standing behind them. And in the center of our little view here, we've got the temple. This is where we want the player to go, and it's the main object that they'll see when they enter this area. And when they come around to the side, they'll see this little entrance going down into the maze. As they come down this first hall, there'll be a block that drops, locking them into the maze. And we start our journey into the game. This first room is the first story chamber. There'll be writing on the walls here, and if they examine the walls, they can get a little bit of initial story and a little bit of setup on what they'll be up against. And the main thing that they're going to be up against is an alien child with a temper tantrum. That's going to be their main opponent in this entire game. And this is the second story chamber. They'll get a little additional information, and they can continue on into the third story chamber here. Again, examining the walls will give them the last of the information which they're going to get on this level. And basically that's going to tell them just a little bit of background on what they're up against, without explicitly telling them any details which we don't want to let them know just yet. And if we continue down, we are in the main access chamber. On the floor will be little diagrams which give the player an idea of what they're going to be entering as they go down to these separate sections of the maze. Now, one area will lead to a combat area. One area leads... Yeah. This is a combat. One area leads to survival, and the last area leads to an exploratory. And we will go down survival real quick because it's really short. The survival games are pretty much just like it sounds. It's for the player to survive in a given amount of time. They have to get from the entrance to an exit without running out of time. And there's usually some pressing matter that's going to keep them moving. I do have a survival level coming up. We'll get that walkthrough done shortly, so we can see what we're looking at as for a survival area. Let's see. In this room, gotta look at my notes here. We'll have some scattered bones and fresh corpses. So we right here we actually give the player an idea that they're going to go into something where it's not going to be too pleasant. And as they come down this final hall, they'll trigger a footsteps, which is actually going to start in this chamber back here. It's going to kind of follow them as they run down the hall and into the portal at the end. Now, on the initial level, there will be tutorial levels that the player can opt out of, but it's recommended that they do run through them. After this portal, if they have not already done a tutorial, they will go into the gauntlet for the survival level. and that will basically teach them what kind of commands they'll have, and let them know that they can pick up objects, that they will need these objects to continue on and get to the next section and to the final exit of that level. Okay, here we are in the exploratory. Read my notes here. Another thing that I forgot is that we're going to have torches along the wall that the player can light as they move down. And one of their 3 main usage items, which will be lit up per area that they're in. For the exploratory, they'll have a lighter available, so that they can light torches and do some other stuff that we haven't quite gotten to yet. In the survival level, they'll have a knife. In the combat level, they have a knife, and in the survival level, they have a light source. And these will just automatically become available and be attached to the character as they are needed. Like for the combat level, if they run out of ammo for whatever weapon they're carrying, they'll default back to the knife. So that they at least have a weapon on hand that they can use. Okay, we are in the bone pile. This will have a nice little bone pile on the floor. And again, we're going to have some scenes on the wall. This is going to be more like a cave scene setting, where they have pictograms on the wall. But no, there won't be any bloody mess in here. This is just dry bones sitting on the floor. And moving on, let's see where we're at. Okay, if we come down into this chamber, I think. I get lost in my own maze. Isn't that great? Yeah, I should have implemented those torches a little sooner. Okay, I see. I passed it. Way, way up here. Here we are. Okay, in this room, we have a little heavy breathing. Nothing really serious. Just something to give the player a little creepy feel. Let someone know there's someone in this maze with them, and we want them to move along. And if we come down here, we have a fresh corpse in the corner. Basically, the poor guy who was in here before him decided he was going to die in the corner. Again, this is going to be nothing serious, no major blood and guts in this area. But he just decided he gave up and died. And down here we have the exploratory portal. This leads to the cube, because all of our exploratory levels are about puzzles. You've got to solve the puzzle to get to the next area. You know, we got little puzzles, little challenges. We'll have an exploratory level coming up later. And if we come across our hall, back to the main room here, we get into the combat area. Now here we are going to have a few sort of like ghost characters walking around. They're not going to be combat at this point. Like I said before, the initial area is a safe area. So they don't get to initiate combat right away. Let me reorient myself here. Okay, going south. We'll enter the first chamber here. This is supposed to be, oh yeah, this is the Antiquities Chamber. Here we'll have basically old weapons, ancient weapons actually, rusty. We'll probably have some little skeletons in armor. You know, this is basically give a feel of combat. You know, some kind of combat has going on. And we'll have our little ghost NPCs walking around, not doing much. Okay, here's the exit portal for the combat area, which will lead to the desert combat. And again, it's a tutorial. It's a tutorial to give the player instructions on how the combat system is going to work. If we skip up to this little... Okay, we are in another Antiquities Chamber. Again, more weapons, more armors. This one might be a little more modern. And we are somewhere. Here we are. Yeah, that's, yeah, okay, and we come up here, up here, up here, up here, up here. Room 12. Oh, here we get the fresh corpse. Here we get a soldier who died. Gets to sit in here and be nice and cozy. And we're going to see a lot more of those in the combat scenarios where, you know, something's going to die. And that is it for the initial area. Some additional notes. The combat area will lead to the Martian Dome, which we do not have completely modeled just yet. The survival area goes to the Twitch Citadel, which I have some of that already mapped out and not quite ready to model just yet. And the exploratory goes to the city. This will be more of a present-day city, abandoned, and we'll have some puzzles for them to play with in there. And we'll see you for the next one.